Hey folks, Jay Brokers here coming at you today with another scam update. In our business as a secondhand risk-free marketplace, we get a lot of scams. And today we're going to be telling you about a new one that we have noticed that's trending upwards regarding iPhones, specifically the newer 13 and 14 models that just came out. This is something that you're really going to want to pay attention to so that you don't get scammed. All right. So basically it involves someone selling you an iPhone. Typically it's going to be on a marketplace like Facebook, Mercari, could even be eBay, probably not Amazon, but one of those online marketplaces, maybe even Craigslist. And they're basically selling you what appears to be a factory sealed iPhone. And of course you get the product, you're all excited, you open it up only to discover that inside that factory sealed package, or at least what you thought was factory sealed, is not an iPhone. Check this out, guys. So here's a couple that we've gotten in the shop recently. These were factory sealed when they came to us. In other words, the little pull tabs down here were factory sealed. But check out what is inside of this box here. Look at this. We've got some weights and some kind of tacky adhesive stuff, and these were kind of planted downward to basically keep the weights from rattling around so that when the box was sealed, it felt like there was an iPhone in here and it didn't rattle. It sounded completely normal. And honestly, unless you put a scale on this package, it felt like a legitimate iPhone in here. The weight seemed to match up until you open it up. So that's kind of what the MO is. Of course, they get the money and then you're left with a box of weights, right? So how do they pull off this scam? That's what we want to share with you, the details on this. And this is not for the sake for someone to repeat this or duplicate this. If you're the kind of person that is trying to commit those types of scams, you will be caught. Trust me, law enforcement's very sophisticated. They will be able to track you down. So this is not for that purpose. It is purely to educate and help people not get scammed. But let me show you what they're doing. And this is something, again, new that popped up. Notice how on this box here, let me hold it real close so you can see, this appears to be intact. This is what a typical seal looks like on an iPhone, the newer ones from Apple at least. They don't do shrink wrap or anything else, and I'll show you these ones in the back here that have that in a moment. But check out this seal and how it looks. It hasn't been opened. If it did, that pull tab would be pulled. In fact, you can look and see what this side's like when you pull that pull tab. It'll either come unglued or, as in the case of this one, that pull tab will be completely missing. So Apple switched to this kind of security seal method a couple years back, actually. I can't remember if it was the iPhone 12 or 13, but they used to shrink wrap and they switched to this, which was supposed to be harder for counterfeit and people that wanted to tamper with you. It was supposed to be harder for them to replicate and pull off scams, but what they're doing basically is they're taking almost like a box cutter knife, and you can see basically this is just a piece of some kind of plastic vinyl paper, basically, this seal. And it's basically got a hard fold right here, and then it's glued inside of the box. And that's done at the factory that Apple contracts to seal these up. So basically they're taking a box cutter and going in here and very carefully breaking that glue where this original factory seal is inside the box, so that the actual tab itself right here is not pulled. They're basically just breaking where it's glued originally. And then that's how they're getting access to carefully open up the box. And you can see here how that looks by just carefully razoring that seal and ungluing it. You get access then to the box. And that's how they swap out. They pull the iPhone, of course, out, and then they put these weights inside with the plastic kind of adhesive there to keep things from wiggling around. So anyway, I wanted to bring your attention to this scam because here's what's so crazy about it. If you get an item like this and it appears factory sealed, right? Pretend like you got this in and it had this seal on both sides intact. The last thing you're expecting is that inside is going to be some weights, right? So let's say you get this, you bought this on Mercari, Facebook Marketplace, you open it up, and then you find the weights inside. So think about it. You're naturally going to go back to the seller and say, hey, seller, you tried to scam me. You sent me this iPhone with the seals intact, but inside was just a bunch of weights, no iPhone. Well, at this point, you've probably already broken the seals on this box, right? You've pulled it off because you weren't expecting anything. And so the seller, the scammer, is basically going to say, no, 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 buyer. You're the one that's scamming me. You took the iPhone out and then you put these weights inside. You're trying to scam me as a seller, right? Because it's your word against theirs at that point. They're going to say, listen, I sent you that phone. It was factory sealed. You're the one that broke the seal. You're the one that switched out the iPhone and put the weights inside. So you see how this plays out. It's a very complicated scam and very difficult then to prove to the marketplace, especially if you're trying to explain then to your bank. Maybe you paid with a credit card, or you're trying to explain to eBay, PayPal, right? It's your word against theirs basically at that point. And so it's a very sophisticated scam. My advice is, if you're buying a factory sealed iPhone on eBay, Craigslist, Mercari, any of those other marketplaces, look at the seller's history and reputation, number one, okay? If the seller is pretty new to the marketplace, they don't have a lot of votes, lots of feedback or anything like that, that's a red flag by itself, all right? But secondly, notice how many of the same phone or item that seller is selling. I mean, let's say that they've got 20 or 30 iPhones, right? And they're trying to offload them on one of these marketplaces. Well, that's kind of a red flag, especially if the price is too good to be true. I mean, what seller goes out and buys 20 or 30 iPhones from Apple or some other retailer and then tries to resell them at a profit? I mean, there's not a lot of money to be made going that route. So definitely pay attention to that, to the quantity. I mean, I'd say if they're selling more than 2 or 3 iPhones, there's something going on there. Why would you do that? I mean, maybe they're legit, but they're blacklisted or financed or something like that. It just doesn't make sense. So definitely pay attention to that. Look at their feedback. But let's say that you find one, you settled on a seller and you think it's legit, and you want to make sure when you get the product not to be scammed. My advice would be, first off, videotape yourself opening the box. That way, let's say that they do scam you and they've carefully opened up that seal, glued it back together. Then you've got a video of yourself opening that box, and you can prove to law enforcement or PayPal or eBay or whatever vendor you're working with, you can prove that it wasn't you that did the switching. It was the person that sent it to you. But also look at the factory seal very carefully before you open it. I mean, if you see any rough housing going along this edge here where the seal is, if you see anything that looks suspicious, like they could have taken a knife or something to that, definitely keep an eye out. In fact, on this box, let me show you something that our team actually missed. Notice how the corner of this box right here is ever so slightly torn, okay? And this came to us like this, and our team didn't notice that. They thought, well, maybe the box got banged up a little bit in shipping. But what happened is the person who tried to pull off this scam, when they took that knife down, they ever so slightly nicked the edge of the box here and kind of started to separate it with the knife. And that should have been a telltale sign to us that something was going on here and that it had been modified. So look at those seals very carefully, inspect them, and make sure that no kind of tampering has been done. But let me show you one other interesting fact here on some other iPhones that are kind of related to this whole scam that we got in the shop. And that way you know about this as well, because it is related. But check out these phones. So these are supposed to be the latest iPhone 14, right? But do you notice anything odd about these? These are in shrink wrap. I mean, since, like I said, I think it was iPhone 12 or 13, Apple's been doing the little pull tab instead of shrink wrap. But we got these in the shop from a customer that was trying to sell them. And just look at that shrink wrap. I mean, not only does it have some holes in it, this one's a little bit better, but look at that line where the shrink wrap was seamed together, how jaggedy it is, how uneven it is, how clunky and big it is. Listen, Apple has some of the state-of-the-art partners that do their packaging, their manufacturing and everything. This is not how Apple would do a shrink wrap. Even on some of their iPads and MacBooks that are sealed this way, this is not what a shrink wrap seal from Apple would look like. This looks totally like somebody bought some home-made shrink wrap kits on Amazon or something, right? Took them home and then took a hair dryer or something and tried to heat it up and shrink it over the product. And then furthermore, if you look at it closely, you'll see where the pull tab was, the original pull tab, that's missing. This has been opened clearly. You can see it again on the bottom, and they just tried to seal this back up. So we didn't actually open these up. We did, however, weigh these, and the weight of these is too heavy compared to what an authentic iPhone should be. So we know that there's something in here that's not an iPhone. Maybe it's the same weights that we're seeing in this other scam over here. Who knows? But it's not an iPhone. And so just another kind of related scam to this. So again, the point being, if you're in the market for an iPhone, be careful. Don't get scammed by people that are trying to sell you these factory sealed iPhones that really have something else other than an iPhone inside. Be careful. Look at their reputation as a seller. See what kind of history they have, how long they've been on the platform. And then also, when you get the product, videotape yourself opening up the package. I know it seems kind of like an extra step, and why should you have to do that? But trust me, if it's a scam, you'll be so glad that you videotaped yourself, because then you can show that as evidence to law enforcement. Well, listen, I hope this video has been helpful. Again, we put these videos out to alert buyers and really help out the marketplace so that scams like this, that you don't become a victim. We see all kinds of stuff in our shop here. People try to present all kinds of different items for sale, and so we're kind of on the front line seeing a lot of these emerging scams, and we want to get the word out there so that you don't fall victim like we did here. All right, so I hope this video was helpful. Listen, if you're interested in selling something and you don't want to have to deal with the risks and hassles and the scams of selling privately yourself, definitely check us out at jaybrokers.com. That's J-A-Y brokers.com. We are a risk-free secondhand marketplace, and we take all that risk and hassle out of the equation. Well, thanks for watching, folks.